Good morning, everyone. Sorry we're a little bit later than planned. I live in Bath. We've had torrential rain for the last 24 hours and my Wi-Fi has been down. So we've been trying to get me actually into the studio. So thanks for your patience there. This morning is an opportunity for us to think about racial equity within the education network. My slides are going to magically appear in a minute for me to do a little bit of framing about today's event before I hand over to Sufyan, who's going to be our first speaker. So thinking about the global majority workforce and the global majority pipeline within schools, that is why today's event is happening. So you want to just pop me on, please, to the next slide. We frame all of our events and all of our learning at Diverse Educators through what we call the 3 Cs. And I want you to think today, whatever positionality you're coming from, whatever lived experience you're coming from, about how we can help ourselves and each other build our consciousness about the experience of global majority educators within the system, how we can build confidence to discuss and challenge some of the issues, and what are the competences we need to be thinking about, for example, recruitment practices. Okay, we really think we have to develop all 3 of these Cs in a parallel way to make change happen. Next slide, please. These were the questions that we were asking as we framed the event and as we wrote out to all of our partners to join us today. So why are we underrepresented as a racially diverse country? Why are we so underrepresented when it comes to the education sector? If I see one more piece of data published or one more report published telling me that we're underrepresented, I might lose my mind. It's actually what we're going to do about that data and how we're going to move things forward. And you're going to hear some great practice and impact from our partners today. Why are we lacking those visible role models? That whole, if you can't see it, you can't be it. Like, how are we actually helping to build representation, build role models, and help people to network and find people who do look like them? Most people are familiar with the glass ceiling as a concept, but are we familiar with the concrete ceiling as a concept? And are we aware of where those structural and systemic barriers sit within our sector above the global majority workforce? And where is the best practice and where's the impact? One of the reasons why we organise this event is that there's lots of people doing events, but they're often doing it from their own lived experience perspective. And what I mean by that is there's lots of organisations now, like mine, white-led, who are perhaps talking about race. I'm just here to facilitate the event today. You're going to be hearing from people. This is their reality, their lived experience. And I think it's really important we centre the right voices in a conversation about racial equity. So final kind of questions here about how can global majority colleagues find peer support? There's loads of fantastic communities and networks out there. Hopefully from today's event, you will know who to signpost. And how can we help build community? And help people who are here, who are racialised as being white like I am, think about our allyship and how we can be part of the solution rather than being part of the problem. Next slide, please. So we have got lots of partner organisations with us today, and this is an opportunity for us to really all stand together and think about how systemically we are stronger if we are working together. Each organisation is fantastic in its own right, absolute powerhouses, but also very busy doing the day job. So how can we actually stand together and sort of really move the dial together collectively? So you're going to be hearing from speakers and founders from each of these separate networks and organisations who are all building on each other's work. Thank you. Next slide, please. And here are our fantastic speakers. Okay, hopefully you are familiar with who they all are already. On the Eventbrite listing, you've got their direct links to their LinkedIn profiles to then find them and connect with them if you want to reach out with them, reach out and contact them following today's event. Thank you, Richard. And the schedule. We are quite fast-paced today, okay? Each of our organisations, each of our speakers has 10 minutes really to give their perspective on the problems, their perspective on the solutions and strategies for us all to be thinking about. So 10 minutes from each speaker, and then an opportunity for the people who are listening to put comments and questions in the chat, which I'll then pose to each of the speakers to tease out and to explore, to give you some ideas back. Okay, thank you for that slide. I think there's one more slide before we start. Okay, yeah, you can stop sharing for me, please, Richard. Thank you. So please to use the chat. If you are here already, if you can please tell us who you are, where you are. It's always great to know who the audience is. We've got 100 people at least joining us today. But without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Sufyan. I've known Sufyan for years. Sufyan's doing brilliant work in this space, and he's going to tell you about the data you need to know about, but also opportunities to connect with the wider community. So good morning, Sufyan.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. I hope you can all hear me. I'm going to do my absolute level best to try and stick with 10 minutes because that's always a challenge for me. when we were thinking, and when I was looking at the title, Building a Global Majority Workforce and Pipeline, you get slightly confused and thrown by that if you're a leader in education within the system at the moment, because there's nothing about the majority part that resonates, because it's so drummed into us that we're a minority. Yesterday, I watched an interview in the American kind of one of those committee hearings, and just heard live in a Congress session kind of with the level of racism towards Arab Americans, and default by being Arab, it equates to X, Y, and Z. And the reason that resonated was because actually hate is constantly, unfortunately, on the rise, both racism in its purest form, but also Islamophobia in the way we're seeing Islamophobia and the rise of Islamophobia, the rise of anti-Semitism, the rise of these religious hates is huge. Sadly for Islamophobia, nobody wants to actually address the word Islamophobia. The government, what was supposedly a left-leaning, a people's kind of party in Labour, again struggled to use the word Islamophobia, because actually nobody wants to recognize that there is directed hate towards Muslims because they are Muslim. And we're seeing that. We're seeing the aftermath of Southport, and we're seeing that thousands and thousands of young people, school-age children, with families, with parents, are going out and thinking it's acceptable to chant certain chants, to throw things at mosques, to attack taxi drivers, to attack restaurants, and all sorts of things that we saw over the summer that was quite upsetting for all of us. But actually, it's a reality of a picture that exists within our country. And it's a picture that too often we pretend doesn't exist. It's a picture that we pretend hasn't existed, because it makes us more comfortable saying, actually, we don't have a problem, when we clearly do have a problem. We've always had a problem. We've just got better and better at hiding the problem, better at masking the problem, because actually we're scared to confront the problem. And the longer we leave this lack of confrontation, the bigger the problem gets. If I'm thinking of our representation in the system, when you have a new education secretary, they normally have a reception, and our education secretary had a reception. And it was like the receptions before and the receptions before and the receptions before, because there was no very, very little representation of Black and ethnic minority leaders within the system, within the sector, at that reception. The reception is really, we're going to invite you. We're going to invite the most important people in the sector, and we're going to show you that we believe you're important by getting you around us at the very start of our mission. And we want you to be a part of this journey. But actually, if you look at those on that journey, there's not many that look like me. But actually, I'm one of those troublemakers. So I wrote to them before the event, and I said, I am almost certain that there will be lack of representation. Therefore, I am saying I am not invited, and I accept I'm not invited, but I am saying I exist. I am in the system. I am a leader in the system. I'm a MAT leader. And there's not many MAT leaders that come from my background. I am a teaching school leader. Actually, now I'm in a very exclusive club. There's not many that are from my background in that sector. I'm an ITT leader, so I've got skits, multiple skits, and they're outstanding. Now I'm actually an exclusive company. It's only me now with that MAT directorship and the directorship of an ITT provision. I actually lead your behavior hub, your attendance hub, but actually it doesn't really matter what you do, because actually if you're not in the club, you're not in the club. And there's reasons why you're not in the club. And often the reasons are that if you look different, you are different. And if you are different, you're not in the inn. And that process continues. We look at our very recent, the number of expert groups that are coming out from various organizations. And the expert groups are the same experts that were the experts before, just being recycled as the new experts. But again, the common feature is that the lack of diversity in those expert groups in the powers of government tend to be people that are typically white British, typically male. But white British tends to be the key focus. So we've still got lots of work to do. And I think that part is really, really important for us to recognize. I'm really pleased that actually we started on a journey at Chiltern Learning Trust, which was a 5-year plan, knowing 5 years ago that we had a lack of representation at the very top of our organization. 5 years on, that journey was always going to be about meritocracy. It was about making sure that the best people get seen. And for people to be seen, we knew we had to train people that are the eyes that are looking. The eyes that are looking need to be able to see the talent that exists. But we also need to train and develop the talent that exists to make sure that it has the ability to compete with everybody else on a fair, equal playing field. And what we're seeing now is our last couple of headships from a minority background or global majority background, I should say. If I look at our last few deputy headships, again, global majority background, not because we went out saying we need someone from the global majority, but because we created a fair playing platform for everyone, and we allowed to grow and develop that talent that we saw, and that rising talent is now coming through our ranks. And that's what it's about, making sure this notion that we don't exist, this notion that we're not out there is ludicrous. It's stupid. Some of the highest performing schools in this country by P8, the vast majority, if you look at the top 10, the vast majority of those schools are schools that serve the global majority, ethnic minority children. If you look at those schools again in more detail, the number of people that are from a minority background teaching those core subjects especially are from a minority global majority background. So actually, if some of the best teachers in the country, in some of the best schools in the country, and the children they serve are from these backgrounds, but we're constantly downtrodden and we're constantly told that actually, you know what, it's an act of charity to give us a place at the table. When the children are performing so well, how do we say to the kids that are performing the best in the country that you're so good and you can be anything, but what you can't be is one of us on this side of the table. You can't be a teacher, but you can be anything else. You can be a doctor, you can be an astronaut, because you're the brightest kids in the country, but you can't be that. And that brings me on to my last point, which is for us, the focus that became, how do we impact and how do we get that talent that exists out there? It was through networking, creating networks, and networks are powerful, and networks are the way forward. And it gives me a huge honor to say that we started off 6 years ago with a dinner for 20 people. And we said, we're going to call this the Racial Equity Network Dinner, REND, #REND. And if you haven't tweeted today, well, tweet now with #REND. And we said that racial equity network, that networking part is really important. We're going to get people who want to recruit diverse talent, and we're going to get that talent in the same room, and we're going to create networks. So actually, that's how people were being recruited, based on who they knew, their networks. And this year, we've got it happening in Birmingham, nearly sold out to 400 seats. We're going to have it in Luton, 500 seats sold out. We're going to have it in London, nearly sold out. We're going to have it in Manchester. I've got people calling me about it in other parts of Britain. And that's a movement that's not about an organization. That ain't about Chiltern, ain't about no one. It's about people from racially minoritized minority communities, or the global majority communities, being on a platform where they can network with educators and showcase their talent and be able to be seen. And I'm so proud that we've been a part of that journey. I hope that what you hear from other speakers today only reinforces the power of networking, reinforces the power of us making sure that we inspire, we support, we develop all of those that are in our networks, all of those that are in the system, because so many people in the system, and I know this as a Muslim in the system in the last year, seeing the news unfold and seeing how schools have responded, it has been a really dark place. It's been a lonely place being a Muslim in the system. And it's been a lonely place for many years, being Black in the system, being Asian in the system, and being a minority in the system. And today, for us, it's about focusing on building that global majority workforce working in partnership, developing those networks and empowering people. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoy the rest of the event.
I wrote down, I exist, I am here. We exist, we are here. And that's such a powerful reminder, isn't it? And you talked about the club, Surf, about the people who are in the club, and it's often a white boys club or a white men and women's club. Do we want to be in the club, or do we want to create our own club? Like, what's the ultimate vision here about a more integrated, more representative system?
I think what we've shown in the last year, I think especially through REND, through the brilliant organizations that we have on this call. I know there's friends from Black Men Teach that I've worked with, Bay Med are here, so many other brilliant organizations are here. I would do some work with Fig Tree and the others. And well, we've got a club. We don't need to join a club. And you know what? The doors to the club were shut for so long that we had to set up our own club. And you know what? If I follow that analogy, you know what? We weren't in the Premier League and we wanted to be in the Premier League. But what we did is we set up a grassroots club, and that club's going up the leagues. It's getting recognized, it's getting seen. Even if they don't want us recognized, even if they don't want us seen, people are noticing us, people are noticing the movements, and people are noticing the change, and they're noticing the difference. And we're here to stay, and they will see the impact that we have. And it's a positive impact that will change and develop education in this country. And we just wish that actually, now that we have our own club, we at least get recognized for being brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been to a couple of the Luton dinners, and they are fabulous. And it's great to see it now spawning around the country. I'm booked for London, I'm booked for Birmingham, and we've already got an invitation in the chat about doing one in the West Country. If we need it anywhere in the country, we definitely need it in the patch where Paula and I are serving. So I'll follow up with the people who are suggesting that in my region. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Thank you for the opening provocation, Sophie, and thanks for the brilliant work you're doing with colleagues in the system. Go and enjoy your Saturday, unless you're going to hang around and listen. And I'm going to switch you out now and welcome our next speakers onto the stage. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
See you soon. Okay, next up, we have Black Men Teach in the house. Good morning, Albert. Good morning, Janai.
Good morning. Good morning, Hannah.
Good morning.
How are you both doing?
Very well, thank you. Very well. I'm really
good. Good. Well, it's great to have you here. I am looking forward to the update, all the brilliant work that I know has been happening within your network. So I'm going to disappear. You've got 10 minutes to talk to the audience about Black Men Teach, and I'll pop back then and ask you a few questions. See you in a bit.
Okay. Let me get these slides up. Is this going to work? Richard, we might need your help here. I've got it. Can you see that? Yes?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. All right, guys. Thanks for having us. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Albert Adeyemi. I'm a teacher, head of year, and currently doing an SLT secondment in Bedford, and co-founder of Black Men Teach.
Yeah. Hi. Good morning. I'm Janai Joseph. I'm also the co-founder of Black Men Teach. I'm an assistant head based in South London. Yeah.
Cool. So we're just gonna talk to you about Black Men Teach, our network, the work that we do in schools with young Black boys and with teachers. So obviously we know the problem. Hannah mentioned sort of the stats that we've looked at, and one thing that we've always said is, research is research, and we can look at stats, but then what action is coming from that? What we're doing about the problem? So I think many of us understand the problem. There's some stats that we're not gonna dwell on because of the understanding of the problem, but talking about sort of our mission and what we do. So a lot of what we do is about raising a profile of Black men in education, and promoting and amplifying their voices We've spoken a lot in the past about, black men, the place of a black man in the education system, and, black men feeling whether they're needed in the education system, wanted. And it can definitely be an isolating place, especially in some areas of the UK. So promoting and amplifying black male educators' voices is crucial to us, letting them know that they are seen, they are there, they are valued, they are wanted, and celebrating their successes. What we set out to do is create a safe hub for black men and boys to discuss the things that we don't normally discuss with our mental and physical health, and sort of raise awareness of some of the inequalities that black men face in the education system. And then more significantly is creating positive experiences for black men, but particularly black boys within the education system. We know that experience of a black boy can be negative, can be detrimental to their life path and their life beyond the schools. So we've set out on a mission to create positive experiences for black boys within education. So that's a little bit about just our mission. And Janoy is gonna just sort of speak about some of the work we do.
Awesome, thank you. So ultimately, what we're trying to do here is just create a space for black men and boys to thrive in education. So almost having a two-pronged approach, in the sense that if we do want to have more black males in teaching, we have to kind of go back to the root. And part of the root is that what tends to happen, especially in school, black boys tend to have quite negative experiences, which ultimately kind of deter them from seeing teaching or seeing the school system as a safe space. And oftentimes when they do leave, they find it quite traumatic, and they will do anything else other than become a teacher. But we've created a community in which we are ultimately trying to serve back, and we're ultimately trying to make sure that there is this aspect of thriving and not just only surviving when it comes to education. And so in terms of our services, we find that we do put on events, and many of the things that we do can be geared towards the individual, but then it's also geared towards trust as well, and different schools on multiple levels. So many of our events we either do face-to-face or also online, and they kind of address the key issues as well as meet the needs of our network. We do also do outreach with some of the things that we do. So we go into secondary schools and also primary schools and tertiary education, and we put on a range of different workshops. So one of the most popular workshops that we do at the moment is the Dear Black Boys workshop, which is ultimately geared towards boys in primary school and secondary school, ultimately stating to them that we see them, we encourage them, and then we deal with a range of different things. Another popular course that we do in terms of the workshop is redefining masculinity. And it's a shame that the data is kind of cut out at the bottom when it talks about the problem, but it actually shows that black males tend to be kind of hypermasculized when it comes to the media. And so what we're trying to do is to rechange that narrative. But that's just on the outside of it. We also run a range of different community aspects. So we currently have a BMT Connect calls and a WhatsApp group call, ultimately supporting black male teachers and connecting them to other black males across the UK and even beyond that as well. And then lastly, we have some of our programs, which is geared towards encouraging and equipping newly qualified teachers, ECTs as well, and PGC or trainee teachers, as they're at the beginning of their career. So what we try to do is have a holistic kind of solution, and we just make sure that in every single area of it, we bring people along. It's not, some of our events, some of our services are not just geared towards black males, but we understand that everybody do need to hear the message of why it is important to kind of support black males in education.
I think what's really important to sort of mention about our events is, like, sometimes when we attend some of these conferences and workshops and courses, it can seem like we're sort of almost going around in a cycle and we're having the same conversation, but like not much is actually happening from it. So it's important that we sort of respond and tailor what we do to the needs of our community. So one just to name some of our events, we had an event in February 2023 that was Black Men Take the Stage, and that was an opportunity for Black men to lead on CPD. So when we see conferences and things in education space, it's obviously we're seeing a lot more diversity in speakers and panels more recently, but that hasn't always been the case. You know, a lot of panels were strictly white, and that there was not much diversity, and particularly Black men. So that event was solely about Black men taking the forefront, leading on CPD, leading on topics that we wouldn't normally see them speak on. And then from that, feedback was that, you know, we could do something overnight, something, you know, that connects and builds community further. So we had a retreat, you know, so we've had a retreat that looks at teacher well-being, that gives teachers an opportunity to tools down and, you know, actually connect. And that was a fantastic experience. So, you know, we really believe it's important to tailor and respond to the needs of the community so that we can actually try to address some of the concerns, some of the problems that we're facing within the education space. And that this links to this retention issue that we're having, and support them in that aspect as well. You know, so Janoy started speaking about some of the workshops and some of the things that we do. I think one thing that I want to highlight is the BMT Connect calls. So last year we introduced some Connect calls, and the whole point was to provide an opportunity for our community to touch base with each other a little bit more frequently. So the Connect calls are going to be launched out this year as well. And the whole point of them is that it's little nuggets, it's little bites of CPD, little bites of good practice from various educators, but then it's an opportunity just to connect and talk and discuss with people that and educators that you may have connected with at one of our face-to-face events. But it's an opportunity to stay in touch and sort of check in on each other in that aspect as well. Janoy, I don't know if you want to talk about the Bridge Mentorship Program.
Yeah, so the Bridge Mentorship Program, one of the things that we've also decided to do was to dedicate each year to mentoring around a 25 to 50 young Black boys, and just helping with holistic development. So that's academic, also soft skills, a range of different things. But finally, I think just a couple of things. The Values Program and the Teach Thrive Program and also the Mentoring Program, these are programs that span over a period of weeks, even the academic year. And we do have a team of individuals with us who are able to kind of go into different areas and make sure that they're delivering these workshops, these and facilitating these conversations to a high level. So if it's something that you're very much interested in, it could be a teacher within a school or trust and organization, please do either scan the QR code, but you can also go to our website and you can also inquire from thereon. Awesome. Yeah, that's us, I would say.
Thank you both for sharing all the brilliant work you're both doing. I'm curious, as two Black male leaders in the system, what support are you getting? Because you're creating this support for everyone else and this kind of network for everyone else. Like, Albert, who are some of your coaches, mentors, role models supporting you in your journey?
So for me, like, just a big me stepping out and sort of asking for support was a big step for me. So I didn't really do that before. I didn't really connect with people. I didn't really talk to people. So through my whole training period, it was sort of just me. And then I tapped into the world of Twitter and actually saw that there was more out there. And then obviously connected with the likes of Janoy and other educators. So Janoy is a big part of sort of my support. And being able to lead something like Black Men Teach with another Black male, and the fact that it's Janoy and itself who's inspiring in his own, it's sort of right, has done a lot of good for me and sort of my journey. And I think just the work that we've been able to do and to be able to bounce off each other and give each other that sort of little push has been instrumental. It's been, second to none. Running a grassroots organization is difficult. It has its challenges. So the importance of having a team, and we have a team around us that support us with this. And, you know, just a little insight into a bit of the future, that there is more coming. So we are looking to grow our team. So stay tuned to check out our website. It's updates coming soon, and we're looking to sort of build a team so that we can, you know, keep pushing forward and keep, you know, on doing this work. But there's loads of names that I could mention in terms of, you know, Adrian Rollins, Adrian McLean. Like they're two leaders within this space that have done nothing but support me personally and support Black Men Teach. And yeah, and obviously my school and my environment has been nothing but supportive as well.
Thanks, Hamid. There's two things there, like the peer support is finding peers and supporting one another as peers. But what you said about, like, you perhaps didn't ask for support, like it's actually finding people and reaching out to them as well, isn't it? So how about you, Janoy? Like, who have been your champions, your supporters, helping you on your leadership journey?
Well, I mean, since I started teaching, I've always tried to put myself out there. So I remember the first part of Affinity networking group I was a part of was YBTN, and I'm sure that Kemi's going to talk about it, which is obviously now the BTN. But then you also have Black Teachers Connect. And I think when I was deciding to kind of progress into leadership, one instrumental organization that helped me a lot was Aspiring Heads, Nadine Bernard and Ethan Bernard as well. And I think that organization, and one of the things that you're going to find here is that us as Black Men Teach, we support each other. We're always looking for opportunities to support each other. And I know that there's people outside, like the Step Up Network, like Ben Hobbis, and we work closely with them, and we're avid supporters of them. And I think that's so important that you can find yourself building a community of supporters. And we do need that. As much as we're leading our own grassroots organization, we also need that support as well. And I think when we're connected with so many amazing people, it does encourage us to know that it will get difficult, but you have people as well who are trying to do the same mission as you.
Yeah, absolutely. That collaboration, like we're all jigsaw pieces, aren't we? And actually together we begin to create a much bigger impact. One quick question from the listeners: what ages of boys do you start working with? Is it particular key stages? Is it teenagers? Do you want to
Primary school. We realized at the beginning it was just secondary school, but then we was invited into primary school and realized, well, the problem stems way back. So I think the youngest we've done is year 4, and we've tailored our workshops to make sure that it's age appropriate for them. But many of them are having difficulties, but not necessarily having the language to explain what they're going through. And we try to make sure that we create a space for that.
I think just to add to that, so as much as we do workshops for everyone, our Bridge Mentorship program is strictly for Key Stage 4 upwards. So the Bridge Mentorship program is for year 10 boys upwards.
So they want to find out more, they can go to the Black Men Teach website and drop you a message.
Yes.
And it's nationwide. Yes, Amira, it's nationwide. They've got a network of people. Like, just to remind everyone, they are full-time school leaders and full-time teachers, but they have got a team of people to help support you. So the best thing to do, find their website. It's in our directory on our website, and drop them that message. Thank you both for the brilliant work you're doing. Thanks for joining us this morning. Feel free to hang around and listen. I'm going to swap you out now and bring our next organisation on. But great to see you both. Thanks. Take care. Thank you. So up next, we have Mindful Equity, I believe. Good morning, Aretha.
Hello. Hi.
That's a very snazzy background.
I know, it's either Blur or this or bricks, so I just chose this.
It looks very grand. You've even got a grand piano. And
behind me is a load of mess.
No, I love it. Aretha's partner in crime, Yolandi, couldn't join us this morning. She's over in Abu Dhabi, so she's here in spirit. But I'm going to give you your 10 minutes, Aretha, to explain who you are, what you do, and I'll be back in 10 minutes' time to ask you some questions.
Brilliant, thank you. Just want to make sure you can see the slides. Richard, could you give me a thumbs up? Perfect, thank you. So, so I just wanted to, I'll stop sharing, Richard, then, because I think you've got your slides up. Thank you. So Mindful Equity UK started just during the pandemic, actually. Yolandi and I were 2 senior leaders in the same school, and it was the first time that there'd been 2 Black leaders, female Black leaders, on an SLT with a voice. And so what we did is we sat down in the canteen one day with a post-it note or a few and started to map out actually how we wanted to make that the norm rather than the exception. And so we came up with Mindful Equity UK, which is a company that supports teachers, well, people who want to be teachers and teachers throughout their career journey. So we work with ECTs, institutions around supporting EDI practices in the schools, in their training facilities, and we work with schools around creating EDI networks, just so actually there's a route for people who follow us into this profession. Thanks, Richard. So it would be remiss of me not to mention the summer holidays and what are summer holidays we've had. And we reflected on this in one of my workshops that I did. I work as assistant director for a local authority. And one of our colleagues got up to present about the impact of the riots. And I kind of sat there thinking, well, we kind of were here before, not too long ago when we started this company. And now we're full circle back to talking about children engaging in racist riots. Just call it a spade and call it what it is. And she said something really, really clear to me. She said one thing, part of her presentation, so I'm going to steal a bit of her presentation, was that all racists have, one thing they have in common with us is that they all go to school. And then she flipped it and she said, and one thing anti-racists have in common is they all go to school. And that really hit home because that's the whole reason we started this company. It was around representation and making sure that, you know, going back to Hannah's very first quote, if you can't see it, you can't be it, or flipping that on its head and making sure that people who are coming through the education system learn about racism, learn what it is to be anti-racist, learn how to contribute to the system in a positive way, and see actually they can progress through a career in education should they so wish to, and be really successful at it and have a voice at the end. Thank you. So schools are a microcosm of our society, and in the schools we've got this huge melting pot, whether it's of beliefs, sexual orientation, gender, religion, culture, traditions, beliefs, they all come into our schools. And just as Jonoy was saying there, it starts really early on. It starts when those children are in nursery, it starts when they're in reception, and that socialization and that understanding of what it is to be different and what it is to be visible and what their value is starts right there. And if we don't have a workforce that's representative of all of those diverse beliefs and religions, etc., then we're doing that a disservice. We're not exposing our children to the lived experience and the interaction they get and the richness they get from interacting with a whole range of people. And that's why we want to make sure that our landscape as educators and influencers is representative across all of those things. Thank you. So I guess this is a call to action for people on the call, because for me, representation does matter. And if it's not you, then who's going to do it? And I chose this image on purpose because one, I like the movie. Two, there was a huge backlash for Halle Bailey when she joined the cast for this movie. And it got me thinking, she could have easily just pulled out. She could have just said, I'm not doing it, you know, just give it to someone else. And she didn't. She went through and she was really successful in her role. And one of the things that we've got here in the teaching profession is one, a recruitment crisis, two, a retention crisis, and three, a lack of resilience around ourselves and what we're able to put up with and what we're able to move past when we get into our education. And one of the things that I want us to be thinking about is actually, are we going to stand by and just let this continue on? So this cycle that we've experienced from whenever, certainly from we set up this company and certainly over the summer, are we going to stand by and just let that be the norm? Or are we going to be agents of change and stand up for what we believe in and be really forceful and make sure that our voices are heard? Not, you know, kind of sit back and just say, well, there's no space. Like Sufyan said, we create the space and we lean in and we support each other to get it done. Thank you. So I just wanted to give some top tips to ECTs and people at the start of the career, actually anywhere in their career. So my first thing is about knowing your why and knowing why you're doing it, and feeding that into your resilient practice, like really sticking to your non-negotiables and, you know, that call to action for changing the system. Next slide, please. And the next one was about defining your values. So who do you want to be throughout your career? What legacy do you want to leave behind? How are you going to support those people coming up after you? How are you going to influence those who may be above you in the system? What are your values and what do you stand for? And what will you hold firm on? Next slide. And then my nugget of advice to those ECTs coming through: don't wait. Just define your career pathway really early on in your journey. Make sure that you know where you want to go. Get that coaching in place, get that sponsorship in place, because academic years go quickly as the summer breaks, but academic years do go quickly, and you can find yourself just doing the same thing over and over again, but not really having a clear trajectory of where to go. Next slide. We'll skip that one because that's quite obvious. Just want you to be mastered. And then this one's really important. So in terms of finding out who your sponsor is, you can list everything out. Thank you. So in terms of our sponsors, it's not finding an ally, it's not finding an advocate. Finding a sponsor is really different. Finding a sponsor is about finding someone who will put their reputation on the line for you, who will put their neck on the block and say, believe in this person, get this person into the room. They will think of you when you're not thinking of yourself. So when you don't think you're up for the job, they will think you're up for the job and they will put you forward anyway. They might challenge your thinking and your misconceptions about yourself and where you fit in. They will show up and they will represent you even when you're not in the room. And that's really important, actually, because often when you're trying to move up that ladder, you're not in the room. You need someone to represent you, who you are, in that room when you may not have access to those people. They will promote you and have a clear explanation of why they're promoting you. So not just because it's a diversity hire, as Mr. Trump might say, but because you're really good at your job, you've mastered it, you're worthy of that job. And often when you're a black leader, you might have to do a bit more to get noticed, but your sponsor should be talking about you, so that actually it balances out, because there's a bit of a imbalance in terms of what we might have to do as leaders to get our heads to notice what we're doing. But once you're there, you have the voice to then help someone else. So as Janoy and Albert were saying earlier, there are people that have helped them and now they're doing the give back. And I would encourage you to think about doing the same. Thank you. I think that's me, I'm done.
Awesome, thank you, Aretha. And if people weren't familiar with that metaphor of the ladder, it's the missing rung report, isn't it? About the fact that a white man has all the steps on the ladder, a woman has them missing, but a woman of colour has extra rungs missing. And the Women in the Workplace report was published, I think, this week or this month. And it always talks about the experience of women of colour within the workforce. Can we just talk a little bit about intersectionality then, Aretha, for anyone on the call who's not familiar with that term, about the impact of intersectionality on you, Yolandi, and your network, on your ability to progress within the system?
Yeah, I think it's really tough to sum up in a very short space of time, but essentially when you have layers and layers of different needs and different cultures and different identities, actually it's really difficult to navigate the system. Sometimes you do need someone to understand the journey that you go on and the very specific barriers that you might face. So for example, if you're a black woman, I'm a black woman, I was a young mum. So I went into teaching when I was a young mum, a single mum, and all of those things around flexible working, around how many hours you had to put in. I had to put in quite a few hours working overtime to get myself noticed. And colleagues, other people didn't need to do that, quite simply. They just didn't. They would turn up, rock up, and their face would fit.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And linking that to sponsorship then. How do you go about finding a sponsor, or how does a sponsor go about finding you? Like, how do we do a bit of Still a Black, sort of like matching up here?
Well, if you're an ally and you want to be a sponsor, then it's about flipping the way that you support the people that you want to sponsor. It is about that active nature of allyship. It's not the passive, yeah, we support you from the background. It's really going out of your way and sometimes having uncomfortable conversations with colleagues when those misconceptions arise and challenging those. That's what a sponsor does. Finding a sponsor is really difficult, actually, but you often find it through the coaching networks, and then you can ask those people to be sponsors. In your workplace, it's really a delicate balance. You've got to you've got to find your network, you've got to find your tribe almost, but you've also got to be really careful and really mindful about who is your sponsor, because you don't want to be pigeonholed. So often when we're talking about Black leaders, they're pigeonholed into pastoral elements. So go and sort out year 10 and go and sort out year 9, because they're all mad and all crazy and they need someone to give them a bit of mentoring. And often that's not the right role. Often people want to go into curriculum and teaching and learning and that kind of assessment role. And so it's finding the sponsor that understands that you're not pigeonholed into the generic or the usual type, and showing them your skills. And it's being bold enough to have the conversation. You have to approach people and you have to sometimes stroke their egos a little bit.
Have you done cold approaching? Like, have you met someone at an event and then followed up afterwards to say, have you got time for coffee?
Absolutely. And that's how I got to where I am. I will speak up in a meeting. I will go into the assistant director's office in big multi-occasionality mat and sit down and say, how you doing? Let's have a chat. Or can I catch you? And it's that kind of, you've got to have the passion, the belief in yourself, and show them that you have the technical ability to do the role. So there are very few questions left as to why you might not move up the system. So yeah, you have to work twice as hard, unfortunately, and hopefully one day that will change. But that's the current landscape now.
And as you were showing that, what Sufyan said this morning about like writing to Bridget Phillipson, like it's putting yourself out there, isn't it? And having the confidence in the agency to sometimes be the one who knocks on the door, being the one, or finding someone to knock on the door with you or for you as well. Thank you, Aretha. Go on, add to it. Go for it. What are you saying?
No, I was just going to say that it is really difficult, and it's not to diminish how difficult it can be, because there are some times where you choose the wrong person or the person isn't genuine, and that can lead to a really negative experience. I think it's really important for people to understand that it's not just a carte blanche tick. There will be negative experiences, but it's growing that resilience and that belief in yourself that is so important to keep going.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. It's lovely to see you. Really appreciate the work that you and Yolandi are doing. I'm going to swing over now to our next speaker, Kemi. Have a great Saturday, Aretha. See you soon. Good morning to me. Good afternoon to you, Kemi. Kemi's joining us from Dubai. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Really good. Lovely to see you, Kemi. Looking forward to hearing the updates of the Black Teachers Network. We've dropped the Y, haven't we? And I'm sure you can explain why.
We've dropped the Y. We have.
Right, over to you for your 10 minutes, and I'll come back with some questions in a bit.
Thank you. I'm just going to share my slides. Oh, on my computer. Sorry about that. Actually, Richard, is it all right if I get the slides up? If I think I'm not able to share them. Maybe I can. Sorry about this, everyone. Okay, I'm just going to get started. Because I'm not able to share my slides, but yeah, we'll see how it goes. So hi everyone, my name is Kemi Oluyinka, and I am the founder of the Black Teachers Network. As Hannah has rightly said, we have dropped the Y, so it was the Young Black Teachers Network, and we are still young, we're all young, but we are just sticking with Black Teachers Network now. I'm an author, an education consultant, experienced science teacher in Senko, and also an experienced senior leader. So the reason why I started the Black Teachers Network is because personally for me, when I was in the early stage of my career, so back in 2013, 2014, I just didn't see anyone who looked like me, especially in the school that I was working in, and especially at a senior leadership or middle leadership level. So it really bothered me. And one day I was just sitting at home and I started Googling the statistics of Black teachers in the UK. And I just thought, okay, this is it's disgusting. You know, it wasn't like 1930s with 2000, and at that point it was 2018. So I decided to start the Black Teachers Network, and the aim was to get a few teachers together at, you know, maybe Costa or Starbucks, something like that. And before I knew it, so many people had signed up, and our first event we had about just under 100 people. And so we started in 2018, December 2018, had our first event February 2019, and we've been running ever since. So the aim of BTN is to support, empower, and equip Black teachers in England. And now we're even going beyond England as I've moved to Dubai. And want them to be the best educators they can be, to progress, to ensure that they see others who look like them in those positions that they aspire to be in, and also to understand the impact we have on our Black boys. Thank you so much, Richard. If we can go to slide 2. So the reason why I said specifically Black boys, because I worked in a pupil referral unit when I started the Black Teachers Network, and 90% of my students were Black boys. And rather than, they got kicked out of their mainstream school because it was down to behavior, but there were underlying needs that were not met, hence why they were permanently excluded or on a fixed term exclusion. So our overall goal is to welcome those with a passion for young people. So it's not just about just saying, I just want Black teachers, I just want Black teachers. Of course I do, but I want to also make sure that they want to be there, they want to support our young people, and ensure that they are ready for success, not just in the classroom, but outside of the classroom. Next slide, please. So the vision is to increase, to see an increase in more young Black teachers, but just Black teachers in general. And I want us to be in positions where we are making those strategic moves, where we are in those business meetings, where we actually have a say in what goes on in the running of the school and so on. Because a lot of us are mainly teachers, but then those people who are in senior leadership roles, who, you know, they don't look like us. So we need to be able to make sure that we're in the room and that we are, not only are we seen, but our voices are heard. Next slide, please. And the problem for me was the statistics. As I mentioned earlier, it was the statistics were too low. 2.3% of teachers are, you know, Black, African, Caribbean, or other backgrounds. And it's, if students don't get to see us in these positions, in these spaces, they wouldn't even aspire to be there. And I think for me, it's the thought of seeing us only in positions of cleaners and school caretakers. I see that a lot, and I still see it a lot now, even where I am in Dubai. But I want students to actually see us in other positions, that they know we are there. They know that we are seen and we are heard. And if they desire to go into education, they know that there was a blueprint before them and people who inspire them to do so. Next slide, please. Another thing I'm passionate about, hence why I started the Black Teachers Network, is minimizing exclusion rates. As I mentioned earlier, I did work in a pupil referral unit for 4 years, and there are a lot of things that I saw, and it was very disheartening seeing, you know, young Black boys who were kicked out of school for reasons that I felt could have been addressed very earlier on. And this also inspired me to become a special educational needs coordinator, because their needs were not met. So if I can get their needs to be met when it comes to their learning, when it comes to their cognitive ability, then maybe those behavioral issues can be addressed. I'm not saying that's the end all and be all, but at least we have a starting point to ensure that they are included in the curriculum, to ensure that they are included in the classroom. And the first sign of bad behavior is not for them to be excluded. It's for us to actually understand what their need is. What is it that they need to help them learn and progress and access to curriculum? Next slide, please. So these are some of the past events we've had with Black Teachers Network. We've done quite a lot of events over the years that I'm very, very proud of. And we have slowed down a little bit because of the move to Dubai. But in saying that, we have also started the Black Teachers Network in the UAE. So we have teachers from Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Sharjah, Al Ain, Ras Al Khaimah, all coming over to Dubai to meet, to network, and to support one another. So we want to make sure that although we are still supporting teachers in the UK, we want to expand our brand. We want to expand the network and ensure that teachers all over the world, or in the UAE for now, are being supported, because once again, we are a minority and there are not a lot of us that are seen in these spaces. So yeah, I'm very proud of these events, and we still have more to come, but these are just some things that I wanted to share with you. Next slide, please, Richard. So off the back of that, off the back of my passion for teaching, for learning, for the pastoral care and well-being of our students, and starting the Black Teachers Network, myself and my co-author Karen, we wrote this book with the help of some amazing contributors. We already had Albert from Black Men Teach, who was on here earlier, and he's also one of the contributors to this book. Ria Gibbs from Black Teachers Connect, she's also one of the contributors as well. And I'm really, really proud of this book that's coming out in November. So it's Black in School, and it's the Black Teacher's Guide to Surviving in the Classroom. And this has been years in the making. It's very, very important that this book reaches not just Black teachers and professionals, but also those who are not Black, whether they're in school or whether they're a parent, they're a governor, they're a teacher, senior leader, middle leader, whatever position they're in. I really want people to understand the experiences of Black people in school. And we have people who have had different roles within education who have contributed to this book. It's important that leaders are able to reflect on their policies. What is it that they are doing in their school? What is it that they are doing that is good? Or what are the areas that they can improve on? Unless we address these things, there will be no change. And although it is not 1954, it's 2024, we still have a long way to go. And I'm really, really hoping that this will give leaders, whether they're white, Black, or Asian, a chance to really reflect on what it is that they are doing in their school for their staff who are Black, for their students who are Black as well, and to really make those changes that can help us move forward. Hannah mentioned about the concrete ceiling. And for me, for many years, it was a concrete ceiling. I have been able to connect with people like Alison Creel and Nadine Bernard, who are, Alison was a head teacher, Nadine is a head teacher. So I've been able to see that now, but I didn't see it before. So I want that concrete ceiling to be removed. I want the glass ceiling to be removed, but we have to start somewhere. So I'm really hoping this book not just inspires people and people can relate to it, but it also gives people a chance to reflect and to make those positive changes so the world of education can move forward and progress. So that's it from me. Thank you very much, Hannah.
Thank you so much for joining us, Kemi. Congratulations on the book. I'm looking forward to reading it when it's out in print here in the UK. I want to just unpick the migration of so many of my Black teacher network to the UAE. I'm really curious because I know a lot of people we know have moved out that way. What was the pull for you to go and work internationally?
So one of the things was that the school that I was working at the time, it was a pupil referral unit, and we were quite small, and there wasn't an opportunity for me to actually progress within the school. And I really, really did enjoy working at a pupil referral unit. I've always loved coming to Dubai, so I just wanted to have a chance to work internationally and see what it is like here. How is it different and how is it similar to the UK? Because I do work in a British international school. So it's the same curriculum, but of course a different cohort. I think a lot of people that I know are moving out to Dubai to teach. And I genuinely believe for them, for people who have spoken to me, it's down to well-being. They don't have that work-life balance, mental and emotional health. It's a chance for them to come out here and have a bit of a work-life balance, because we do work 4.5 days a week. I'm not saying it's not as intense, but we're able to condense those hours and still have a bit of a balance, which does help. It does help mentally.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, we're seeing a mass exodus, and it's just curious, isn't it, when I'm seeing patterns and trends like that, and the fact that you're now launching your network over there to create community and create safety for. Is it just Brits at the moment, or are you getting like North Americans, Canadians?
We have Americans as well. We have people from the UK. We have people who have been out here for quite a long time, as well as people who are new to the UAE. So it's really nice to connect with different people and understanding what the context is like. For example, like you said, in the US compared to the UK, what are the similarities and differences? Why are we still going around this, cycle? Why are we still experiencing the same things after all these years? So yeah, it's been really nice connecting.
Yeah, and I think, Doreen, we know that a lot of Black teachers leave the system in the UK because of lack of opportunities or the barriers. Actually, it's another option, isn't it, to move overseas and to go and get a job or a promotion in another country, rather than leaving the kind of the system. And as with the rapid growth of the UAE market in particular, there's perhaps more opportunities to get promoted over there as well. Are you seeing that?
I would definitely say so. In terms of getting promoted, that's another discussion, because as I've mentioned earlier, seeing people who look like me in positions of senior leadership is very rare. I feel like it's even more rare here compared to the UK. However, I think within the next, I think it's by 2030 or even maybe a bit longer. They did say Dubai will need 150 new schools. So you know that there's a lot of growth, there's a lot of expansion, there's a lot of opportunity over here. And just so you understand the context, I was here before, back in 2021. Then I came back to the UK, and I was in a senior leadership head role, but I stepped away from that to come back to Dubai. And, you know, as I mentioned, for, you know, just taking care of myself, having that work-life balance. And I'm still able to do what I enjoy, which is good.
And sometimes, like I've done sidesteps in my career, sometimes a sidestep into a better space for you to do the healing and to get better well-being enables you to then pick up more opportunities anyway. And just a plug, because Kemi's speaking at an event I'm organising next Saturday in Dubai, as is Yolandi, Aretha's partner in crime. We're doing a massive women leadership conference next Saturday in Dubai, and we've got really good representation, haven't we? We've got some really good speakers, women of colour, from the system, from the kind of the region, because you're right, it's quite a white male-dominated sector over there at the moment, but there are lots of opportunities on the horizon. So I'll be excited to see you in the flesh next weekend, Kemi.
I'll be excited to see you too. I just want to add to what you just said there about it being like a white male-dominated space. Being in the UAE, you know, sometimes it's the association with, if you're white, then it's going to be perceived as more credible. And I think we need to kind of step away from that and know that there are also Black people, Asian people, who are just as credible, just as experienced, who can do those roles and those jobs really well as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you very much for the work you're doing here in the UK and over in the UAE. I look forward to seeing you next weekend. You can go and get on with your Saturday afternoon and evening now. And I'm going to welcome onto the stage Team Mix Ed. Bye, Kemi. See you soon.
Morning.
Morning.
Good morning, Marcus. How are you going?
I'm good. I've just bribed my kids to not be talking because my wife's out. So if they come in screaming, I apologise.
It's okay. We're here for the children. It's okay. It's a Saturday morning. Morning, Louise. How are you?
Hello. I've just chucked my dog out, which is not quite the same as my kid, but yeah, hopefully the dog's something about.
Well, it's great to see you both. Looking forward to hearing the update from Team Mix Ed. So I'm going to disappear and we'll be back in 10 minutes with some questions.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I can hear Marcus's kids already. We've got one slide, which I think Richard's just going to put up now, so that we can both sort of talk through this. So a very warm welcome from us at Team Mix Ed. So my name's Louise John Bocas Cooper, and that is Marcus Shepherd. And we co-founded Mix Ed during the pandemic. And it's a really, really important platform. We're both senior leaders. Marcus is a director of education for a large multi-academy trust, and I'm a deputy head teacher in a single academy trust. So we're both senior leaders. There's not many of us. And the main thing that we want to sort of put out there today, and it's interesting, all the other speakers have been so good, so interesting. I'm learning lots. But again, I've already noticed sort of there's no mention of people of mixed or dual heritage. And that is exactly why Mix Ed was set up during the pandemic. We mixed race, although that is a huge umbrella, is the fastest growing ethnic group in the UK, and it has been for a number of censuses or censi. Yet we often get forgotten about in conversations on global majority or inclusion or race equality. So we're here to sort of make some noise and amplify this group of people. And none of us are the same. Unless you're related to someone, they usually have the same background as you, but not always. There's very few people like you in this space. So Marcus and I are both mixed race, but you can see from looking at the screen, you would say Marcus is a Black man. You may say, yes, he looks mixed. Me, I'm quite white passing. I often get asked if I'm Italian or Greek. And you can make assumptions about both of us based on that. When actually, if you dig beneath the surface, I am half Muslim. The one side of my family is very devout practicing Muslims. The other side of my family, very white British Christian. So one thing I wanted to raise today, when you're looking at creating global majority workforces, is to make sure you are aware of who is in your space and who you might want in your spaces, and how receptive you might be to them. So your race and your ethnicity, your culture will not often match up when you're mixed heritage to what people think about you. So I'll give a few personal examples. Being in the position I'm in, I will hear a lot of things that people think are okay to say to me because she's white too. So going back to Sufyan's first comment about Islamophobia, I will hear things that are not meant for my ears. If people knew that my dad is Muslim, that my family are Muslim, they wouldn't say some of the things that they say. Now that brings two revelations. One, it makes you realize, oh, you're not quite what you say you're doing, are you? You've got there's the persona you give off and there's the real you, and sometimes that can be useful. But secondly, all racism is trauma. It is traumatic, and sometimes I hear things that can really upset me, really hurt me, and then sometimes don't feel I've got the validity to feel hurt or offended. Oh, I didn't know. Oh, sorry. So sometimes it can be, we always talk about masking and trying to fit into spaces, but sometimes for people of dual heritage, it can be quite exhausting, and it can be quite upsetting sometimes what you're hearing about. And so therefore, what we're asking today and what Mixed Ed do is we just make sure we're amplifying those of us of dual heritage and mixed race to make sure we've got a space in all of these conversations and to understand the nuances and the very sort of sensitive areas about identity that you might have. So that's my sort of bit. So I'll hand over to Marcus, who will be able to expand on that a little bit more. Yeah.
And I'll be super quick, Hannah, and I hope my kids stop shouting. So I think the other thing around being mixed race, so it's interesting, Louise called me a black man. I've been doing some work with our overseas teachers who have come from Ghana, which is where my dad's from, and they described me as a white man the other day, which I found quite funny. What you'll typically find, my culture does not match with my skin color. So I know I am more palatable to leaders because I speak with a Colville accent. I've got an English British culture. So I eat, Sunday, I was booked by a white woman in a single parent family. I had Sunday dinners every Sunday. My culture is kind of white British culture. And what you sometimes find is that's more palatable. So I maybe get to a position easier than if I was a black man from Ghana. But what I found in my experience being a trust leader now is having to be that conduit between and saying, I am privileged now that the 4 schools I look after in my executive role, 3 of them are ran by black head teachers, 2 of them by black women. And what I find myself doing with my bosses sometimes is saying, let me just explain to you when they're doing these things, this is a cultural thing, and it may be different to how you would lead. But it's really important that you don't ask them to lead in the same way. So, for example, me and one of my leaders, a Caribbean lady, were having a conversation and we got quite animated and we got really animated, but it wasn't aggressive. It was just, we were really passionate. And then one of the other leaders in the room left and said they were having a row, they're having an argument. It was really intimidating. And actually what I said was, look, you've got to be really careful because what you're used to is typical white British culture, which is everything's very, with all due respect, prim and proper. People don't like conflict. People aren't willing to really say what they think. Whereas in Afro-Caribbean societies, everyone just, we say what we think. Like if it's wrong, it's wrong, and we're going to name it. It doesn't mean we're going to disagree or argue. So what I found in my role is having to explain that and having to explain to people that there's a lot of masking going on. So the Caribbean accent or the African accent isn't palatable to certain groups. So I know my leaders and my head teachers sometimes have to put on a different persona. And actually my job is to say they shouldn't have to do that. And so you know, what interests me in mixed race is you often find yourself brokering this kind of relationship between, I've got one foot in the camp of the accepted culture of school leadership, because that's how I was brought up and I understand why people think like that. And also understanding my heritage, which is this is the culture of my dad, and this is the culture of the Afro-Caribbean society that I grew up in. And actually, those two things can exist in the same space. And I think one thing to be really clear about in school leadership, as in any leadership, is the model of leadership you are used to doesn't mean that's the only model of leadership. And it's really, really important that, particularly if we're going to promote Black and Asian leaders, that they do not feel that they have to dissociate their culture from their leadership style. And those two things must really, really go together. So that was really what we were all to talk about today. Please do reach out. Mixed Ed are very much about amplifying a voice and making sure that everyone is involved in the conversation.
Overview. I'm just going to pick up on a few of the things you shared there. Louise, if I can come to you first of all. I was coaching someone last year who was a white man from Northern Ireland, and everyone assumed he was Catholic, but he was married to a Senegalese woman, and he was he converted to Islam, and he was in two WhatsApp groups: the kind of the teacher WhatsApp group where there was Islamophobia, and he was in the Muslim prayer group where there was actually quite a lot of racism to the white colleagues. And this idea of like coexisting in different spaces and the kind of the code switching, and as you said, like you realise that perhaps people are projecting they're inclusive, but actually they're doing and saying something different. How do we go about tackling that?
Well, yeah, that's a very good question. I didn't used to tackle it, which was my main thing. And I guess that with power, as in authority, comes the privilege of being able to call things out, which is why it's so important that people like me, like Marcus, are in these positions, because I can now call it out and I'll say, excuse me, my family are Muslim. I find that really offensive. That's not okay. And I think, why do you feel uncomfortable sometimes saying that? And I'm like, why am I feeling the discomfort? Why aren't you feeling the discomfort? So what worries me is that it's great for me to be able to call it out in my position of power or authority, but there must be colleagues, classroom teachers, support staff, cleaning staff, everyone that goes into creating a school and making it run every day, or any organisation, who have to put up with these. We call them microaggressions, but they're aggressions. They might just be not as loud. They're tiny, silent aggressions that, you're the one in the wrong for feeling offended by that. So I just want to empower people to call it out, or at least have people like me, like Marcus, in these roles where they can whistle blow and say, well, actually, the staff room's quite toxic. I don't think our teachers understand about, you get comments like, oh, there's kids off for Eid again, they're missing lessons. And I'm like, right, okay, well, we don't have a national holiday for Eid, and that's okay, but this is mega important. So just things like that can be such conversational aggressions. And if they go unnoticed, they cause a lot of harm, and it causes that, leaving the profession, leaving the school, or not entering the profession in the first place, because you see it in a certain way and you feel like you won't be welcome in that.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for mentioning whistleblowing, because we've obviously got calling it out when we address it publicly, calling it in when we do it privately, or if we don't feel safe to do that, we should be aware of and should be using the whistleblowing process. And I'm always staggered at how many people don't know about the whistleblowing process. I was coaching a middle leader in a primary school, and someone had shared a racist GIF in the all staff WhatsApp group. SLT were in it, and no one did anything about it. So I encouraged her to follow the whistleblowing policy. She didn't even know what the whistleblowing policy was. And that worries me, that staff don't actually know how to protect themselves. So it's using whatever means it's going to keep us safe, isn't it, to share that information. If I can jump over to you then, Marcus, what you were talking about there, the lack of cultural consciousness, the lack of cultural competence when it comes to a lot of white leaders about those differences and how a Black person, an Asian person might lead. How can we tackle that bit, Marcus? How can we bring more awareness to like the leadership models, the leadership tropes that are out there?
I think, look, typically it's getting better, but leadership has been seen as strong, powerful, dictatorial almost, like don't show any weakness, but also done in a very, if I'm honest, particularly in the British schools, my experience is when I was a head teacher, people used to come to my office and they'd always moan about people. And my first thing would be, have you told them that? And they'd always be like, of course not. So everyone's whinging behind their back. But then when it comes to their face, and I was sitting in a meeting the other day where we were reviewing a school and everyone was saying, oh, it's not very good. The lessons aren't very good. And then the feedback, it was like we just walked into this outstanding school. And I was stood there going like, you've got to be honest. So I think the first thing is we've got to reflect on what is the current culture of leadership and where does it not work? And actually, for me, the clarity and honesty is the one where in schools, 90% of problems in schools is because no one's been told. So do you know that you are performing poorly? Because if you don't, and it's all been done behind your back or in meetings that you're not involved in, that's not fair. Now, this is quite stereotypical, but, you know, I grew up in an African culture when I spent time with my dad and Afro-Caribbean cultures as well. You don't need to know where you stand. You don't need to guess where you stand because you know where you stand. You do something wrong, you know where you stand. And actually, what I think people need to understand is, first of all, what we think is the default setting for leadership is not particularly right. The second thing is then, comes back to Louise's point, is are we willing? When people say they want to be anti-racist or they want to improve the majority, you've got to be willing to try and understand another person's culture and understand what that means. So, for example, when me and this leader were talking, we were talking very animated because that's how we are together. But actually, that wasn't shouting, it wasn't screaming, it was both of us getting articulate in our points. And when people then instantly see that the words were used, which were aggression, intimidating, and straight away I just turned around and said, you know, what are we doing? You know, did you ask that member of staff if they felt intimidated? No, we'll go and ask them. Of course I didn't. Well, actually, just throwing a word there. And, you know, even the other day, I sent an email to a colleague, a white colleague, really nice email. I showed it to HR and they said, I find him really intimidating. And I just said to myself, you know, to my boss, that's because they don't like honesty. And I'm the first person who's been honest to them. And therefore we attribute that to my race or to my different culture because I'm the first person. Now, if that was a white guy, they'd be seen as being like ruthless leader. Whereas to me, I've been called 5 or 6 times in this job, intimidating and aggressive. And, you know, people who know me know that I'm not at all. I'm just being honest with people. So I think it comes to 2 things. One is the traditional model leadership don't work because there's lots of things not been said. And the second thing is before you throw that accusation, because it's an easy thing to do, it's just an easy thing to do, reflect on maybe that person's just giving you some straight feedback that is what you need, but is counteractive to what the current status quo is.
And I think just to add to that, it's just made me triggered a thought in me. Marcus gets called aggressive, and maybe that's to do with his culture. I can sometimes be called aggressive because I'm a woman saying things, and if it came from a man, it would be, oh, he's a real driven, fearless leader, and she's just a bit of a, yeah. And, you know, so there's that intersectionality as well. The mixedness comes from being mixed race, being a woman, being a Muslim woman, being an African woman. There's all that is so complex.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you both. So what I'm really hearing there is about how we all challenge the kind of the traditionality of leadership models, but we also check our own bias in the language we use. That I could say something and Hannah's assertive, but when Louise says it, Louise is aggressive. And actually we're both saying the same thing in the same way. So let's be careful with the language we use about it. Brilliant to see you both. Thank you so much for the work you're both doing on top of the day jobs. I know you've got hectic day jobs as well. Great to see you. I'm going to switch you out and welcome Nadine and Ethan to the stage. See you soon. Take care. Good morning, Nadine. Good morning, Ethan.
Can you hear us well?
I think you're about to join me. Hello. Hey, team. How are we doing?
Good, thank you.
Yeah.
Can you hear us all right?
Yeah, all good. Great to see you. And I think that was a lovely segue into leadership and the kind of the leadership pipeline. So I'm going to disappear, give you 10 minutes to explain all about Aspiring Heads work, and I'll come back and ask you some questions afterwards.
Sure. No probs.
Okay, good morning, everyone. So my name is Nadine Bernard. And this is...
I'm her husband. I'm Ethan Bernard, sorry.
Ethan Bernard, co-founders of Aspiring Heads. And just want to thank this platform. Thank you, Hannah, for this opportunity to just share more about the work that we do. So who are we? Who is Aspiring Heads? So we are a social enterprise dedicated to breaking down racial barriers in education in the UK. Our goal is to increase representation of Black teachers and educators in school leadership, ultimately creating a better learning environment for all children. And I think, you know, in terms of everything that's been shared this morning so far, we already know all the reasons why. But for us, that key thing that really triggered the whole, or propelled the whole start of Aspiring Heads, was when myself and Ethan sat and we realised there was only 1% of Black head teachers in the UK. And we just thought, how could that be? So, you know, there has been ongoing, you know, research, and it's been very, very clear that there is a systemic issue within the system that is blocking, stopping people who look like us from progressing up that pathway to positions that they ultimately deserve to have. And so Aspiring Heads is not only, it's not just any program, which I'll tell you a bit more about, but it's actually a community, it's a family. We are here about supporting and giving people a safe space, a culturally competent environment that can support individuals and help them to see and know and be reminded that they are more than capable and more than worthy to be sitting on those chairs, creating their own chairs in those rooms, whatever that may be, that passion, that desire that they have on their heart, they can achieve that. So in terms of our work, we provide a program. Part of the work that we do is Aspiring Heads, which is a program that stems over a number of months. And, you know, as I mentioned, we do give people a kind of a safe space, but we tie in the competency, you know, national leadership standards, thought leadership. We're very, very fortunate to have a number of well-established leaders coming and supporting also on the program. I know for myself what it means to have someone who looks like me, who can share or understands the experiences that I'm going through. And I know in terms of my journey to headship, although I did accelerate quite quickly, there were a number of things and factors that I experienced that really ultimately took me to a very, very low place. And one thing that I was very, very passionate about is enabling others to have a better toolkit than I had, because I went in there ambitious. Yes, I'm going to do this. I'm going to change this. I'm going to support children and so forth to thrive. And I'm going to be able to do all of that. And then I very quickly realized that my race and who I am is going to be a problem for the sector. And so ultimately, Aspiring Heads has given ones who are coming up behind me a better toolkit than I had, which I shared. So this is just an overview, a brief overview of the program that we offer. As I said, we strongly believe it's a program like no other. Ultimately, because it's more than just doing a module and that's that. It's about building those really strong relationships and being with each other every single step of the way. So you can see in terms of the activities that individuals go on when they're part of the program. We have a Webby chat, podcasts, reflective workbook, share tasks. But then it's not just a program that just finishes and you just say, bye, well done, got a certificate. But it's that ongoing support that happens after. And I've really, from my own personal experience, understood and understand that you need that consistently throughout your career journey. And then also you can see the modules that we cover as well.
Great. So in terms of our impact that we've had so far, I'm extremely proud of what Nadine and I have been able to do. And when we share what we do and who's doing it behind the scenes, a lot of people are shocked to know that it's just Nadine and I. We have a number of supporters around us, don't get me wrong, but since our inception, we've had 8 cohorts, and we're just sharing some stats here. 93% reported an increase in current knowledge and understanding of leadership competencies. 95% reported feeling more equipped with overcoming current and potential barriers. And I just want to just share the one in every 3 participants have achieved promotion to senior leadership team or headship roles. And we're really chuffed about that. You know, this is what we want to see. You know, we're raising children ourselves, and we know that representation is important. And it's one of the many things that does need to change within this system. So I want to big up a number of organizations that have supported us along the journey. You know, it's been a pleasure to sort of work in partnership with a number of these organizations, gain support from early stages from a number of these organizations, and we're currently doing ongoing work with a number of them as well. So we're really grateful for the support that we've gained to make this Aspiring Heads dream work. With regards to next steps, so what we're currently doing at the moment is we realize that with all the good work that we've done, in order to scale, we need to improve something. So currently we're working on improving our organizational capacity, which is we're improving our systems and processes, we're improving our governance, and there's many things that we're doing in the background to really strengthen our direction going forward. And then our next step is to launch a range of new initiatives. We got so much new ideas, and we have a number of new projects in the pipeline that we're going to be launching next year for Black educators and for educators of the global majority. And we definitely look forward to connecting and partnering with even some of the organizations that were presenting today. And then the next step is to again increase our network and build on more partnerships. We realize that, you know, we can't make these changes on our own, and we're part of a wider ecosystem that we need to come together in order for things to happen. Quick plug, if you want to hear more about Aspiring Heads or want to see us in person, we're having our first in-person summit. We've been running our annual summits for the past 3 years, and this is the first time we're doing it in person. So go to summit.aspiringheads.com and get your tickets, and it'll be great to see as many of you down there as possible. And last but not least, connect with us. Like, we want to connect with as much people as possible, not only to share about the great work that we're doing, but to hear about the great work that you're doing too. And as I mentioned, this is an ecosystem, so we all need to be in this together. So thank you all for listening, and yeah, we're really grateful. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you both for all the brilliant work you are doing. I'm gutted I can't come to the summit. I'm sorry, I've got something in my diary. I will be at one of the future ones again, I promise. Nadine, I remember when I met you, and you were a very young first-time head, and I remember you going like to rock bottom in that first headship role. You're in your second headship now, aren't you?
Third in the
third headship. Third headship.
Yeah.
You go, girl. You go, girl. And what's been the difference for you around the kind of the support that's been around you as you've gone to your second and your third headships as a still young Black female head teacher?
Well, I think in terms of the support, there's been elements and basically the same individuals, to be honest, throughout each stage of my headship. And I think the difference is having that continual support throughout each of those stages, whether you have your low points, your high points, and so forth. I've been very, very fortunate to have advocates for me. I know Arifa spoke about sponsorship and just people who are out there and just saying, Nadine, you can do this. Nadine, I'm standing with you. Nadine, you deserve to be there. And those constant reminders and those individuals, advocates for myself, have really helped me to actually be standing and even to be in a position where I am right now. So I definitely have to give a lot of credit and appreciation for that ongoing support from individuals.
But you're passing it on and you're creating that space for others as well. My question for you, Ethan, is that, like, I know family and community are really strong core values for the two of you. I follow you on Instagram, I follow you on socials, and that's what I'm really hearing here, is it's not just a program, we're creating a community. Tell me a little bit more about how you go about creating that space where people feel really connected and really rooted into Aspiring Heads.
I think it first starts, and I hope I can encourage everyone, it starts with like who you are and what you're able to give. So Nadine and I, we're very giving individuals. So on our program, we as Nadine mentioned, we don't just offer the program, but we give time. You know, we give time. You know, we take time out where possible. We've created a structure between us where we're able to give more time to our alumni, more time to the network. That could just be phone calls, you know, emails, trying to, you know, create other online lessons, online spaces for people to just come and talk. And I think once people realize that those in charge are genuine, they're authentic, and the motive is real, that's when they feel really welcome. And that's when they begin to open up, exhale, you know, and then proceed forward. So, you know, it really starts with who you are and what you're able to give, and ensuring that that motive is right. And then from that's right, you're gone clear.
Yeah, I love that. And I love the fact there's so much interconnectedness between all the different organisations and speakers today, that like Janoy was listing off all the different partnerships he's got with each of those organisations. And then you've seen the legacy of what your alumni are then creating for the system as well. So I did an event on Wednesday and Wayne was name checking you both for the support he's had on his work. I love that. I love hearing the kind of the advocacy and the name checking to everybody. The stats are really impressive. Okay, so you're helping people get into leadership, and we're seeing that progression to headship. Have you set yourself a kind of a goal as an organisation about how many heads you want to create and support into the system?
You know, it's funny, we've spoken about this, and obviously being 1%, you know, the day that we see it hit 2%, although that's very low, yeah, that's
it's still more, it's movement.
It's movement, you know, that's going to be like a key milestone. But every single time someone through the program achieves that status, you know, we're like, okay, yeah, great, that's 0.000 something, you know, moving up. But again, it's I want to acknowledge those who are leaving the profession because of issues, and I'm like, come on, this, you know, we need to work. This pushes me to work harder, because we want those, we want the numbers to go up, not go down, you know. But yeah, that target, we want to just see that percentage raise, yeah, and we also want to see the impact that has on the wider school communities. And we're still working on ways on being able to identify that, you know. So yeah, that's what we're pushing on.
And I think you know, that's really good point in terms of wanting to raise that stack and increase, but there is a number which we can see of people from the global majority, although they reach that place, how long can they sustain it? Because it's exhausting. And that's why, you know, being able to create to really get organizations, trusts and leaders who recognize their duty and their role to ensure that people from the global majority are in places where they can actually thrive and excel and feel okay, and not become heavily burdened because of all of the systemic issues that are very alive and kicking ultimately. And I think that in some ways is one of the greatest challenges. And again, why we're heading towards, you know, this whole partnerships. What more can we do to extend our work? What, you know, Ethan said, it's just me and Ethan doing much of the work. So how can we extend even further to ensure and work with others to make that greater impact that's absolutely needed so individuals can thrive?
Yeah, absolutely. That ecosystem of all the different partners doing their bit. And I know we've done lots of work on anti-racism and IGTE and anti-racism and governance, but what about the middle? And going back to the concrete ceiling concept, my understanding is that the glass ceiling for women is above deputy headship, but the concrete ceiling for people of colour is above middle leadership. So helping people to get onto SLT, they're more likely to become deputy heads and head teachers. So there's some data sets there for us to think about putting together as a system as well. But it's always great to see you both. Thank you so much. I hope your summit goes really, really well at the end of October. Please, I'll put the details out when I email everyone. I'm going to now say goodbye to you both. Thanks for joining us. And say hello to Alana. See you soon. Take care. Bye. She's been in the background waiting since about 10 to 10 this morning, but here she is. Good morning, Alana.
Good morning.
The most patient woman I know. Good morning. It's great to have you here.
Thank you.
We're running 2 minutes late. You'll still get your 10 minutes, Lana, I promise you. So Alana's here to speak about BAME Ed, our national charity for Black, Asian, minority ethnicity teachers within the system. So I'm going to stop talking, hand over to you, Alana. I'll be back in 10 minutes to ask you some questions.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Hannah. I think one of the main things I need to say is welcome to you all, and thank you for taking the time out on your Saturday in order to be here and to receive this information. It's really important that we all, as a community, are a part of everything that's happening within education. So a quick history of BayMed. So in January 2017, BayMed Network went from an idea to a conference. It started off as an idea between a conversation between two people who said, what are the chances of me making it into a headship? And that then evolved into us deciding to do something about it, and it's a conference. And we started with just the desire to drive ethnic representation in schools and in school leadership, and to support more people from global majority heritage backgrounds into careers. And that was our driver for quite some time. And it worked really well. We ended up making a national impact to the extent that we evolved into our own charitable status. So we're now established as a charity. But 7 years in, we've had to have a look at ourselves and analyze where we are, what we've done, and what's the impact, and how are we genuinely making change. So we at BayMed, we have renewed. We now know better, and therefore we seek to do better. And what I'm going to share with you now is about what we've discussed as going to be part of our new embrace around education and what we want to change within it. So the BayMed Network is now all about changing access, understanding, and power structures in education. We want to make sure that everyone who comes into education is welcomed, and they find a space where they find that they are heard, they are healed, and they are honored. So we want everyone to know that they have a voice and that their voice has power, and there is a network behind them in order to encourage them to use their voice in that individual situation, as well in the wider scheme of what is happening in education. We want everyone to feel healed so that all the trauma that you will experience, and trust me, I've been in the trenches as well, still am in them, you will have those negative experiences, that there are spaces that you can go to in order to get support. When someone in your school isn't listening, that's not the end of your network. There is an entire network built to listen to you and to help you and support you through those parts, to help you heal. And to celebrate all the excellence that is happening. It is great today to hear so much from all of those organizations and the incredible work they're doing, not to mention what Hannah has been doing with Diverse Ed. So how do we ensure that those spaces are there, where you can come as you are with a potential and ambition of who you want to be? Well, first, within our network, we work with those who are racialized as white, as well as those who are racialized as Black or global majority heritage. We work equally with both. We are powered by volunteers from the diaspora, as well as those we refer to as our active allies. And the reason we do that is because when we look at the balance of power within education, we recognize that there is a need to harness the power of allies so that there is change. It's not so much about finding a space at the table as in expanding the table and having those people in positions of power who can change that conversation and bring the recognition that we sometimes cannot do for ourselves in those spaces. We work with people who might identify as bystanders, those who think that, well, race doesn't affect me, being different doesn't affect me. Education will be fine no matter what we do. So we work with them in order to bring change and start to shift their thinking. And that has widespread impact within the sector itself. So it's work with governors because they're the ones who keep on appointments of headship and the strategic directions of schools. We work with large organizations, education organizations en masse. We work with recruiters at the grass level. And at the grassroots, we work with all of our other groups. We try never to refuse a phone call that has the potential to support positive change. And I can tell you, there are people who I've just spoken to over the phone just to help them through that one situation. And that's what we want to do at BayMed. We want to help people practice change and understand the need for change, and as well drive and become and remain active within change. Our flagship program that we're actually well known for is our coaching and mentoring that is provided for any person who is of a GMH background. You are entitled to 3 free coaching or mentoring sessions. And we ensure that all of our coaches are well trained. So there is an actual training program that our mentors go through and our coaches go through. And we ensure that we pay them. So we Through the donations that we get to our charity, we are then able to pay them a stipend, because we do believe that people should be paid for the work that they're doing. But that is of no cost to you, the end user. So please do utilize it. And there are many different ways that you can. So maybe you're going through a situation at work where you need to have some counseling and someone to speak to. We're able to provide you with some light level coaching that will help you think through the situation that you're in. Maybe you're going to apply for a post and you want someone to talk you through what the process is going to be like and help you practice those questions. Having confidence when you're going into your applications is always a really important part of what you need to do. We are there, and that's what our coaches and mentors are there to do. In addition to that, we are in work in partnership with Teacheroo, and we provide a jobs board. Now, our jobs board, we are now refining, and we're moving it towards providing all the teaching jobs that are available in England and Scotland. There you will be able to access those schools that have shown a commitment towards hiring diversely, and that will be promoted through our network. We will also help to prepare you for those interviews and ensure that your application has a strong chance of working when you go into those spaces. We organize some events. So we do work with the Festival of Education, and we're celebrating our 8th birthday in January at the University of Wolverhampton. So please do come along if you want to come and celebrate with us. We have the Anti-Racist Educators Festival that happens in Wales, as well as another festival that will be happening in Bristol. So we have all those flagship events, as well as those that are hosted online in partnership with others. We are launching our new and revamped newsletter that's going to host all the information that we have about what our network has done. And we have hubs that are established all across the country. So our hubs, which are in Bristol, London, Wales, East of England, Northwest, as well as those that we are refurbishing and revamping that are going to be in Yorkshire and Humber, as well as the Southeast, Bedford, Bucks, and Hertfordshire. So if you're interested in getting involved, please do visit our website or email us at BAMEd@outlook.com, BAMEdNetwork@outlook.com, and we will be able to get in touch with you about working with our hubs or working through our hubs. Now, at BAMEd, we've also had to change the way that we operate. So we are known as a repository. We have lots of research and the projects that are identified on our website. And you can find lots of information that are responsive to issues that are happening within our society. So when the riots occurred, we ensured that we had a repository of resources that schools could use in order to speak to students, staff, and establish systems within their schools around what happened in the riots this summer. But we want to be much more than that. So moving on from just being a repository, we're moving into the area of research, and our focus for this year is going to be on SEND. We are looking at how we have moved from the ideas of subnormal to the idea of invisibility within UKME or GMH background and heritages within SEND. And we're looking at how SEND manifests within the sector, how it's managed within the sector, and how we can do better, because that's what we always seek to do. How do we ensure that all of our children and our teachers get a much better experience? We're also launching a bit of research that's going to look at whether there's safety in supply. We do know that within Wales and some parts of the UK, that if you are of global majority heritage, you are more likely to be languishing in supply teaching than you are going to have the safety of a school. We want to be able to change that practice and see what work we can do around there. So as you can see from my short presentation, there's a lot that we're looking at within the BAMEd network, but ideally we are a charity that is based around the teachers and the sector and the people and the allies who want to make change within our sector. I think it goes without saying that everybody recognizes the need for change, but feeling safety and security within making that change happen is something that only we can put forward for our sector. So we are active, as in our volunteering capacity, we are active in making sure that that happens at every point within our network. So please do go to our website and have a look at the work that we're doing and get involved. We're here to support you, and we're here to ensure that the ladder is never pulled up and we're always supporting others.
Brilliant, Alana. Thank you so much for the update. I met Alana 10 years ago when we started Women Ed, and just to see what you've done and what you've achieved as an organisation in those 8 years, it's really impressive. And And I appreciate when we get to like 5, 6, 7 years old, we have to do a refocus and a reframe. So about those 3 H's, heard, healed, and honoured, that really resonated with me about actually like, what are we actually doing to make that change? What are we actually doing to impact the experience of the global majority? How did you come up with those three kind of like commitments?
I do have to say it was magpied from a friend of mine, Tia Gaines, who runs the Leaders Like Us global network. And when we met at a conference, she was speaking about, well, what are the things that we and in the US they refer to people of color, what is the things that we don't get within education? And we found that one of the commonalities was we don't feel heard, we don't feel healed, and we definitely don't feel honored for everything that we're doing and the work that we do. So that's one of the things that we've also looked at and said, yeah, that's one of our driving manifests. We want to make sure that everyone has their opportunity.
Yeah, I love that as a commitment. And I want to pick up what you were saying about supply, because we know we have a lot of global majority educators who join us from the Caribbean, from Africa, and they end up in that supply market, and they probably end up in some of the toughest schools and some of the schools where there is more racism. Tell me a little bit more about that safety in supply.
So we want to first look at what is it that's driving people towards supply. We hear no end about the teacher shortage that is occurring across the sector. And then we hear about a lot of people going into supply, even from the ECT stage, ending up in a supply with a supply agency rather than being able to apply and secure jobs. So we have decided we're going to have a look at why that is happening within the sector itself, what we can do to support more supply teachers so that they can get into permanence and have that stability within their posts, and how do we ensure that they feel safe within those supplies. So working with those schools and working with some of the recruitment agencies themselves who place supply teachers into schools to ensure that there's an anti-racist focus and strand that goes through those schools before they place teachers who come from global majority heritages into there. At the end of the day, everybody wants to feel safe when they go to work, and we feel as a network it is our job to try to ensure that in as many spaces as possible we can make sure that they're safe and that they have somewhere where they can respond.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I'm thinking about the different reasons people end up being in supply. It could be their new arrivals to the country and they don't even know how to navigate our very complex system and way of being recruited. It could be they've had a really bad experience in a school and they don't want to be stuck in one school. Or it could be, I'm just thinking about the bias, auditory bias that comes up quite a lot around accent and language and the perception of how someone's command of English. Is that something that's come up around people with regional accents or international accents?
It is something that frequently comes up where suddenly people can't understand. So they don't look at the quality of the teacher, they just look at how anglicized the teacher has become. And that cannot become one of the criteria that we have within education. And it has to be something that we work really, really hard against. And that's what we're trying to put forward and ensure that all those people who are in those positions of power, so those who are doing the recruiting, those who are working in the schools, those who are heads of department that are supporting those teachers in the classroom, that they're making those statements really clear to students, to other members of staff, that it is the quality of the teacher that is in front of them that is the main concern. And that's what we need to look. Again, as you know, Hannah, we need to get more people understanding that we live in a global society and it's diverse communities, and the cultural contribution that they can make has to come with some level of cultural humility from the people who are doing the recruiting.
Absolutely. And I love that accountability about like how the supply agencies are looking after the supply teachers, but also holding the schools to account, and how the recruitment agencies, I know there's been a big piece internationally, ALOG have really held the international sector to account for removing like names and faces from CVs, because a lot of the UAE schools want a picture to show you're white or a name to show you're white. So there's, how do we tackle that bit? How do we tackle the way we do recruitment in the UK currently for teachers?
If someone is really, really committed to ensuring that they have a diverse field, they can do blind recruitment. That's absolutely fine if you want to be blind, but blindness doesn't always get you to the aim that you need. Sometimes you have to be deliberate in your actions and then say, if we don't get a diverse field, we're not shortlisting, we have to go back. We have to make sure that we're recruiting differently. We have to make sure that we're advertising differently. We have to go to spaces where people are so that they know that our school is safe. It's not just we're sitting back. This passive approach that we take in UK education. So we take a really passive approach to the people that come to us, and then we take a very challenging, hammering approach to them during the recruitment process itself. So you go to interview and you get hammered with questions, you get hammered with activity. And in that one day, they want you to showcase everything you can do without ever looking at the potential behind someone. So what is it that I can develop you into? Because if you are one of the greatest schools and you're outstanding, then you're able to grow outstanding teachers. And if you are saying, well, you have to come to me ready-made, well, then you're not as outstanding as you claim you are. So we have to get back to the point where schools want to grow students, but they also want to grow their teachers and build their understanding. And they recruit on basis of potential, and they recruit deliberately, diversely, because that's the places where it's successful. You have to be deliberate in your action, and blind recruitment does not always achieve that.
No, you're absolutely right. And just before I let you go, because I went to a presentation last year that Teach First had done, where they've changed their recruitment model and they now recruit for potentiality. And it's significantly increased the number of global majority applications they have, but also the number who get onto the course. So it's a different perspective, isn't it? Sorry, go on.
So in the school where I was head, we tried recruiting differently as well. So we would have a teacher, we would let them do a 15-minute lesson. We'd give them feedback and then ask them to do that lesson again. The teacher that can understand and listen to feedback is a teacher that you can grow, and a teacher who will understand. And that's what we looked for. We didn't look for, oh, wow, that was a really spectacular lesson the first time. We looked for, can you listen to the feedback and can you respond to the students in front of you? We need to change what we do in education.
I completely agree. Well done to you and the team for the brilliant work you're doing as a charity. I'm going to send out all the links to all the websites for everyone to find out more. And good luck as you go into your 9th year as a charity. I'll see you soon. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks. Take care.
Cheers. Bye. And last but not least, we have got Ria waiting in the wings. Welcome, Ria, to our Saturday morning event. How are you? You're on mute, sweetheart. I can't hear you.
Oh, there we go. How are you?
I'm really good. How are you? How's married life? Congratulations on the wedding.
Thank you. It's good. It's amazing. It's wonderful. I am obviously back in the classroom now, so a little bit tired, but getting back into the swing and the habit of everything. So yeah.
Big changes professionally and personally this summer. Well, I'm looking forward to you as our last speaker at this event, Ria, to tell everyone who's listening everything they need to know about Black Teachers Connect. So over to you for your 10 minutes. I'll be back to ask some questions at the end.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. So I have no slides today. I'm literally just going to talk from my heart. I've got a few notes on my screen. So my name is Ria Gibbs. Now, Matumbo, I did recently get married a month ago. I'm an educator, a change maker, qualified change practitioner, an author, speaker, founder of Black Teachers Connect, and I'm currently head of social sciences at a South London girls' school. I did leave teaching 2 years ago to follow a career path into change management and develop my skills in change management. I am now back in the classroom where I absolutely want to be. So, Black Teachers Connect. If you haven't heard of Black Teachers Connect, we are an organization focusing on both the recruitment and retention of Black teachers. I started Black Teachers Connect in June 2018 when I was beginning to start my journey as a teacher and going into the teaching profession. And I wanted to speak to other Black teachers who, of course, were in the profession, who could give me advice on my application and what their days are really like. And I came to realize that I couldn't actually find that many to speak to. I spoke to about 2, and I actually started to reflect on my own experience of schooling, my own experience with teachers, how many Black teachers I actually had. And I realized I only had about 2 across my whole school years and college years, but I recognized that they actually had the biggest impact on me. And because I had that lack of Black teachers to speak to, I wondered how many other people were also facing the same issue. And through that, I went to do my research, went onto the government website, had a look at some of the stats for Black teachers. And I discovered in 2018, 2% of Black teachers existed in the UK. And that is Black African, Black Caribbean, and those who define as Black other. For me, that was a super shocking statistic. I actually didn't realize going into teaching, I was going in as the minority. And that was something that I really wanted to reflect on. And so I started Black Teachers Connect with the hope that no other Black teacher would have the same type of start that I did. So they would have a network of teachers that they could draw on and speak to, and that they could have a community that was available to them. And so with that, I launched. I didn't know what I was doing. I was like, do you know what? I just want to create a network for teachers. So I hopped onto Twitter at the time, which is now X, created a page, and I started from there. Started to speak to Black teachers, started to do online events. And then COVID came around and we were having more online events, and teachers were connecting and they were building relationships with one another. And in 2022, we had our first Black Teachers Conference, which was absolutely amazing. We had just over 100 teachers come out, and it was a really impactful event, but it also helped our teachers to recognize there is a community available to them, and a community that is growing. So our main focuses are around retention. The retention of teachers is super duper important. I actually put it before recruitment. We have a retention crisis here in the UK, but Black teachers are 5 times more likely to leave the profession quicker in comparison to their white colleagues. So we are more likely to leave in the first 5 years. I am one of those statistics, but I have gone back, and retention is super important. I don't believe that you can focus on recruitment without focusing on retention first, because if you're doing nothing to retain, there's no point focusing on your recruitment. Career growth and mentoring is super important to us. So we do have the mentorship scheme that we launched 3 years ago. Just recently, earlier this year, we had our mentorship brunch, and that was bringing together our mentors and mentees for just an afternoon of brunch and talking about their journeys and how things are going. And it really gives our teachers an opportunity to connect, to disconnect from the classroom, but also to just reflect on their own careers and their own growth. And one of the things that we are really focused on is job satisfaction. Teaching is a hard profession, and I never want to take that away from any of our teachers. But it is something that is super duper important to understand that you can get satisfaction from your job. Teaching is a service, it's a passion driven career. It's not something you can just do if you don't like children or you really don't like your job. It becomes very, very difficult. And something we want our teachers to do is to have satisfaction in their jobs. And that is by giving them opportunities to let their hair down, to be able to speak to other leaders and teachers and really grow in who they are, not just professionally, but personally. So what has our impact been so far? We've managed to keep teachers in the system. Those who have wanted to leave, we've managed to keep them in by supporting them, helping teachers to map out their careers, so where they want to go forward, supporting teachers through disciplinaries or those who have been put on support plans in their school. In May 2024, we recently had an event in UCL. So we hosted about 40 Black teachers who came out just for a day of understanding how to grow in their careers, how to really own their careers, because this is the year I've said to our network that we don't want to focus on terms such as imposter syndrome or thinking that we're not supposed to be where we are. We're exactly where we are supposed to be, but it's time to kind of kick down those doors and own our careers and push things forward. Currently, I am supporting ECT teachers. So I've got a few early career teachers who are just entering into the classroom, might be struggling a little bit. I'm giving them one-to-one support. We're still mentoring Black teachers, providing safe spaces. And one of the things that we've been doing this year is supporting unqualified teachers to get a route into teaching to become qualified. A lot of Black teachers, if you don't know, some of them are working in schools as unqualified teachers, which means that they are doing the same workload as a qualified teacher, but they are earning on the unqualified teacher pay scale. If you have a moment after this call, go and have a look at the unqualified teacher pay scale. It is significantly lower than the main pay scale for qualified teachers here in the UK, in England and Wales. So it's really important for you to have a look at that. Going forward, we are making sure that our teachers are being supported, focusing on leadership and focusing on growth. I do want to do a quick shout out to the other organizations that we have worked with and that we will continue to work with. Everyone that you've heard from today, has been a part of our journey, even though we started in 2018. Everyone has really supported us, and we want to continue to support people. One of the biggest things about Black Teachers Connect is making sure that we are growing globally. So although we have teachers in our network here in the UK, we have teachers all over the world. So a lot of the teachers that we've connected with are based in the US, and a lot of the problems that we face are very similar. And so something we want to do is being able to bridge that gap and providing a massive network for people to have support and grow with one another in their careers. And so the impact it's had for me is the fact that I've stayed in teaching. I haven't, even though I've left and I've come back, that is what this network is about. It's about keeping people in this profession and allowing them the opportunity to thrive, not just survive, but grow in their careers and do exactly what they need to do. Being a Black woman in the system is not easy, but having this network and being able to connect with other people, get mentoring, get support has been super duper impactful. And so continue to follow us. If you want to connect with us, please connect with us on Instagram at Black Teachers Connect. You can drop us an email, blackteachersconnect@gmail.com, or you can sign up to our newsletter as well, where we do monthly updates on what we've got going on in the months coming up. So I do look forward to connecting with a lot of you. Please connect with me on LinkedIn at Ria Marie Gibbs, and I look forward to seeing a lot of you soon.
Ria, great way to close out today's event. And I think your link there to what Alana talked about, the supply teacher impact and the insecurity, lack of safety there, and what you talked about, retention issues, attrition rates, but also the experience of unqualified teachers and how so many global majority educators end up stuck in that kind of like space where they're really being paid to be a TA but being used as a teacher in schools. Go on.
It's exploitation. I don't want to, get really upset about it, but I see it as exploitation. I know teachers who have, as Alana did say, I know teachers who have come over from Jamaica, come over from the Caribbean, doing head of department roles, really kind of senior roles, middle leadership roles, and they're on the bottom end of the main pay scale, or they're even working as an unqualified teacher. So they are literally being exploited for their labor. And it's so important to equip people with the knowledge to know that this doesn't have to continue. And that is what is really important. It's about giving people the knowledge to understand that they can actually become a qualified teacher and earn more.
So is the argument that they haven't got QTS, so we're going to pay them less, but actually it's about how we support people who have been trained and qualified as teachers elsewhere in the world to get that QTS.
Yeah, exactly. And it is about them being able to understand that those opportunities are there. A lot of schools are great at trying to get their teachers qualified, but some will keep them at unqualified, because at the end of the day, money isn't in truckloads in schools. And so if you can pay teachers on an unqualified pay scale, it works in some schools' favors if they can.
Are there any skip providers or university PGC providers who are specifically tackling this piece and supporting those overseas trained teachers, do we know?
Not that I'm aware of, or not that I've been in contact with myself. So
something for us to think about, isn't it? A bit like Alana was talking about how these organisations today can influence recruiters and supply agencies. Actually, if we found some IT providers who were doing this or could do this and could support a group of global majority teachers to become qualified, that's going to rapidly diversify the representation of the workforce.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you for that. I love your quote. We are exactly where we are supposed to be. I think that's really affirming. Tell me a little bit more about how networking has impacted you on your journey as an educator.
So it's been super important for me. I remember I came into this profession super young. I came straight out of uni, and I think I don't want to say I shook up the education system a little bit, but I feel like I jumped in a little bit with my network, and I think people are a bit like, what is this that Ria is actually doing? And I've had quite a few mentors. Martha's been a great mentor for me. She took me under her wing as I was a really kind of young teacher, and she helped me to grow and helped me to understand what I want my career to look like. But also I think people have supported me with my transition out of teaching, but my transition back in. So when I made the decision to leave, it was simply because I wanted a bit of a break. I wanted a break. I wanted to reflect on what I was doing, and I wanted to grow other skills. And I managed to do that in change management. I'm a qualified change management practitioner, but I also recognize that my purpose is in school, and having a network of people around me and being around a network of teachers has really helped me to understand and keep going around my why. And so I've never forgotten my why, because my network has been so important and so inspiring to what I do.
Yeah, brilliant, Maria. Thank you so much. And I think it is really hopeful, because I think people often assume, I think, that once you leave teaching, you leave teaching. But I know a lot of people who step out for a year, 2 years, even 3 years, and almost regroup, or in some cases heal, and then come back in, but on their terms. And like you said, with a whole different skill set. Like, I'm excited to see how you'll bring the change management qualification to a school role, but also to your CIC as well. Like, it's a win-win, isn't it?
So yeah, it is. And I think growing your skills as a teacher is super important, but also recognizing your skills are transferable. That's a lot of the time when I speak to Black teachers, I think they're pigeonholed into particular roles in schools, pigeonholed into doing particular things. And it's like, your roles are super duper transferable. Like, teachers they're superheroes. Like, you can do everything. Like, we do so many different things. And this is not for me to say, oh, you should go and leave and try something different. But even if you wanted to do something on the side, or you wanted to explore the different kind of skills that you've got, you're more than capable of doing it. And I'm so excited to bring change management, not just into my classroom and my classroom management, but also as a leader in teaching at the moment, as a middle leader with my team and with people that I line manage and I support and my colleagues, how we can bring that element of change management into schools, because schools are ever changing, and it's super important that they're changing in the right way and also changing at the right pace. And that's super important when you look at inclusion and diversity. It can't be done overnight. It is a change that takes time, but you have to have the right plan in place.
Yeah, I love that. And it builds on what Alana said about being the change, becoming the change, being part of the change. Everyone we've heard from today has that passion, that purpose about disrupting, being that rebel, being that person to disrupt the things that are currently perhaps not being done as well as they could be done. So thank you, Ria. Lovely to see you as always.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolute pleasure. We'll see you soon as well. I'm just going to do a couple of final slides just to close out today's event. So we're going to magically appear in a moment. So, Jamil, I really hope that what all of our different speakers and organisations have contributed to today's event has left you passionate and purposeful, but also really, really curious. And I want you to think about, what questions have you now got coming up for you, your role in your journey, or your school, your trust, your college, your organisation. And I'm inviting you to think about, who do you need to share those questions with? Okay, one of my mantras doing DEIB work is get curious, not critical. Because getting critical often gets a defensive response, whereas getting curious, you might have a more open door conversation, a more open conversation. So do take a moment to scribble down, like, what are some of the questions you're going to go and curiously ask back at your own context to perhaps bring awareness. Like, one of the questions I would ask is, do people even know what the concrete ceiling is, for example? So take a moment just to process and think about those questions. On the next slide, please, Richard. We always ask people to close out with commitments, and like thinking about, is there one thing that you've heard today that could be a micro pledge, a micro commitment for you as an individual, or a wider commitment that you might want your organisation to take? If you want to put those in the chat, feel free to do so. If not, scribble them down. Thinking about, if we all just do one thing differently or one thing more than we were doing yesterday, that's how that collective endeavour creates those ripples of change, that butterfly effect. Together we're so much stronger, and together we can go so much further as well. Okay, so think about what your commitment is going to be from today's session. Have I got one more slide left? And then thinking about next steps. I've got some big next steps here to get the information out to you. So we'll get the recordings from today edited. They'll be put onto a YouTube channel. We'll send that out to you all. I'm going to send you all of the website links for all of the organisations who have spoken and the different events they've spoken about today. I'm going to put those out in an email to you as well. What else did I put on my list to send to you? And thinking about how to help join up the dots in the different networks. We've got lots of different communities growing here, but is there an opportunity for us to perhaps network everyone together? I will also put in the links to the racial equity networking dinners. So in December, we're in London, in April, we're in Birmingham, and in July, we're in Luton. So it'd be lovely to see some of you there, and please do come and say hi if you do go to any of those events. Is that my last slide, Richard? I can't actually remember. I think it might be. It is. Okay, fantastic. So I just want to say a massive thank you for taking the time out this morning to all of our speakers to talk about the brilliant work they're doing, often evenings and weekends and holidays around their full-time day job. Thank you to all of you for being here, for being engaged, for being interested, and for giving up your time this morning to find out more. Or if you're watching this post-recording, thank you very much for your time and engaging as well. So please do and enjoy your weekends, and we'll hope to see you at another event soon. Thank you very much.